Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo. The Roundtable is where we engage in meaningful conversations about pressing challenges facing believers today. I'm your host, Noruwa Edokpolo, and today we're diving into a topic that is particularly close to my heart, Gen Z and their mental health. Please share the link as usual with your friends and family and subscribe to my channel. All right. I always like to add this at the beginning, that the views expressed on this program are those of the speakers, and we speak for ourselves and we don't represent any other entity. Okay. Our world today is changing rapidly. When we were growing up, there was nothing like mental health. I mean, you just, face it, deal with it, and move on. It didn't matter what happened. In fact, like somebody said, sometimes a slap or a knock on your head and the mental health is gone and you are sorted. But evidently, times have changed, all right? Gen Z, the millennials, et cetera, et cetera. Now, they face unique pressures, social media, academic demands, overwhelming barrage of global events. Once upon a time, we don't know what's happening in the next door, but today, we are seeing what's happening in Ukraine, in Gaza, all right, in Lebanon, in Israel. Everything is live before us. The COVID pandemic, climate anxiety, political unrest, all of these pressures are taking their toll on the mental health of not just the Gen Z, but particularly the Gen Z and that, the generations after them. As a church, as a body of believers, how do we respond? How do we foster an environment where young people can feel supported, understood, and guided? Today, we have the honor once again to have Reverend Dr. Adeoye Oyewole, a mental health professional, a theologian with decades of experience in counseling and mental health advocacy, to provide us with a perspective, both Christian perspective and from his, expertise as a psychiatric doctor. Of course, I always add my classmates, my friend. So if you hear me call him Zico, please bear with us, okay? Doc, welcome, and thank you very much once again for joining us. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, sir.
Thank you very much. So briefly, all right, let's start with this. Give us an overview of mental health challenges that seem to be most prevalent among Generation Z and millennials today. What is it from your experience? What is it?
Thank you, Pastor. What I see very predominant is the abuse of substances. Drug abuse is top among some of their problems. I suspect that the abuse of drugs is to take care of identity crisis, a group of them have, which snowballs into depression. And when they are depressed, since they don't usually discuss with their parents, the peer pressure provides the way out by introducing them to marijuana, cocaine, heroin, all these psychoactive substances. So if you look at statistics of incidents of mental illness, you'll find out that when it comes to drug abuse, the age bracket between 14 and 24 tops the chart.
Wow.
So I would say a good number of them have a lot of psychoactive substance use disorder. Some here and there depressive illness, some anxiety disorders. A good number of them have body image disorder. There's a kind of a psychiatric disorder where somebody is overtly concerned about their body image. There are other psychiatric disorders that are not as overt as the ones I've mentioned.
Okay.
A good number of them have what we call adjustment disorders. Some of them may adjust poorly to university life. Some of them may be adjusting poorly to walk. Maybe some of them are supposed to walk. Now, all of them are traceable back to those disorders I have mentioned.
So just, yeah, Doc, just a quick one. When you mentioned about university, what's your take? What age should we allow children to go to the uni? 16, 17, 18, or it doesn't matter? What's been your experience?
I think it doesn't matter. What matters, therefore, is the parenting skills under which this child has grown. Because see, what we are calling millennial, Gen Z, Alpha, are not labels for those children in themselves. They describe the parenting outcomes of the parents of that time.
Okay.
The Gen Zs are a product of a possible shift in parenting strategy, different from the parents of millennia, different from our own parents, the same human beings, the same basic biological, physiological challenges. However, the issues they bring to the table may vary. And more importantly, how the parents respond to it. You can't say you will take a Gen Z back to baby boom. The parent needs to adjust and find a way. So for me, the majority of our children enter university early. Okay. I entered university early at the age of 16 or 17. Do you understand? My brother,
you were ready.
Doctor, yes, and I was ready. My younger brother, who is also a medical doctor, entered university at the age of 16, way back. I mean, he's about 54 years old now. So what I think is, as people were getting more aware of education, children started going to school early. And if they go to school early and they get taught early, the age at which they qualify to go to the university reduces in a way. So the question now is that, yes, we are training them in the IQ. Are we also instilling some emotional intelligence training for them?
Okay.
Adversity quotient. Are they growing in it? Because somebody can be 30 and yet have poorly developed coping mechanisms. So for me, yes, there's an age in which we should not, it would be like an abuse. But if the parenting strategy and the home and the school environment takes into cognizance their needs to meet up with the environment they are going into, I don't think there will be any problem.
All right, that's a good one. It was part of my, my thoughts, but I mean, I thought we should just say that because there's a debate going on now in the country, about that. So, in your experience, what role does social media play in shaping the mental health of this, this Gen Z millennial that we're talking about, and how do we balance positive, and the negatives? How do we deal with social media so that we don't throw the baby and the bathwater away? How does it impact them, their mental health, and how can we use it as a tool for good, not otherwise?
Yeah, thank you, Pastor. When this age is driven by knowledge, and the more knowledgeable you are, the easier for you to fit into the challenges of this age. Even some of us that are their parents, what we are using to record now, you jocularly said that you are not as anxious as you will have been. When you say that and your daughter is around, they will just laugh. Which kind of people are this? At times when I have a new gadget and I'm searching for the direction, they will have started pressing the thing. I said, please don't press it like that. Let's follow the instruction. And they begin to explain to me, you don't need that you know?
User guide.
We are in the age of knowledge.
Mm.
There's information explosion. And irrespective of your age, whether you are their parents, whether you are Gen Z, if you don't learn how to sieve information, you can be overloaded.
Mm.
And there are people are trying to come up with some form of diagnostic categories for information overload. More like information anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like going for window. That's why I don't do window shopping until I have decided. I don't know how women process it. They can go for window shopping. I don't. I will have decided what I wanted, look at my budget, so that I don't disturb myself mentally. And I just go for what I want. If perhaps what I want has other variants, yes, that's exciting for me. It's a big one. I look at it, I study it, I look back and forth. But for me to just jump into the shopping mall without having a pre-ordered mental slate, it just wearies me. If you see me, you'll be wondering, Zico, what's wrong with you? You're tired. So the children are bombarded. Unfortunately, they don't have the maturity to develop a slate that can filter, that can sieve the information. So there's no doubt that the Gen Zs are overwhelmed. Worse still, they're in the age at which psychology naturally describes as hypothetical deductive reasoning. They form hypothesis, they want to deduce it. The barrage of information upturns them because it's like biting more than you can chew. And their mental slate wants to form hypotheses and form experiment of it. Some don't even want to wait for the experiment. They want to implement straight away. So that has produced a lot of challenge to their mental well-being. These pieces of information excites them, excites the hormones, takes advantage of this hypothetical deductive reasoning that is native to their age. And there is enough facility in the environment, in the global village to experiment. They can have friends in America. They can have intimate friends in Canada through this instrument we are using. They can come up with ideas that parents have never thought them. A good number of them belong to new age movement groups. They may not know the nitty-gritty, but they get brainwashed without them knowing it and realizing it. They get indoctrinated. So what I'm saying,
yoga, etc., etc.
Yes, yoga. And they tell them the benefits. They demonstrate it. Just like I can see you now, they see their masters. They don't need to travel abroad. And you know, the power of sight in influencing behavior is enormous. What you hear has an impact, but what you see and hear has a greater impact. So some of them is as good as they are in America. It's as good as they are in Canada. And it's sufficient to say that what we call the baby boom, Gen Z, millennials, are narratives from the Western society. And these narratives get into our doorstep here through social media, through knowledge that is shared. Not only shared in terms of audio alone. There are visuals that reinforce these narratives. So they're actually under a lot of pressure. No filtering mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Then the people who are modeling these ideologies tell them about their right to independence.
Mm.
So there's a culture shock, even though they are not even in America.
Yeah. They are left
They
unhinged.
they want to upturn our own culture, what we are using to bring them up. You will realize that you are not the only person parenting them. Social media is another competitor.
And sometimes takes more time than you.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Because we are also trying to look for how the family will be okay.
Yeah.
And erroneously too, we throw them into it because we want them happy. We don't want them to feel neglected and abandoned. So if you see that they are good on the tab or some form of computer, we throw them into it, hoping that that will compensate for not being around, that it's also helping them to develop competencies. That's a challenge.
All right. Thank you so much, Doc. If you're just joining us, this is a roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo, where we have conversations on contemporary issues in the Christian faith. Today, we're looking at Generation Z or G, how do you call them now? Gen Z. Yeah. Gen Z, millennial, and their mental health. My guest, Reverend Dr. Adeoye Oyewole, respected theologian and a mental health expert. Please share the link, invite your friends, post your questions. Usually what happens is that, my guests go back and, listen to it, and they can answer all the questions that you put out there. Now, as pastors, parents, young, youth leaders, how can we identify the signs that a young person may be struggling with their mental health, especially in a, maybe in a church environment? Here you are, you're a parent. What are the signs to indicate that something is going amiss with the mental health, of your ward?
Yeah, the scripture has warned us ahead and has come out with the signs and symptoms of Gen Zs and their struggles. I think the book of 2 Timothy chapter 3, where the Bible talks about the fact that in the latter times, there will be challenging times. He started describing some of the things you will see in the young: disobedient to parents. In fact, that's how the scripture puts it. A good number of them will, for no good reason, want to challenge the authority of their fathers, of their parents. They feel they know more. And they feel that what you know, compared to the global exposure they have, is kindergarten. Some of them, when you see a child who is unruly, unnecessarily, it's not that you have offended the person. It's not that there was an issue, but the person just begins to get unnecessarily argumentative and unruly. The Bible talks about being incontinent. When a child is more pleasure-centered than discipline-centered, they want their pleasures indulged. When a child does not want boundaries, does not want instructions in terms of indulgence of appetites, some of them don't want to allow the knowledge of God to have an influence on them. The Bible says they will have a form of godliness, but they will not let it be an influence. Gen Zs are knowledgeable. There are religious sects, Christian sects, that actually have a good number of them You go to their churches, a lot of music, a lot of orchestra that excites them, that touches only their soul. Very little reflection. They don't like reflection. They hate boredom. They say, Daddy, I'm bored. I'm bored. There used to be one of my daughters when she was young. She used to say that a few times, and I sat her down that boredom is an opportunity for reflection. It is not negative. Pierce through your boredom. You're going to find treasures of life, treasures that will add values to your mind. So when you keep saying, I'm bored, and I keep telling her then that you're even a lady, I expect you to be able to exercise your intuition to pierce through boredom. Because what you are calling boredom is that your mind is saying, I'm tired of this level of operation. I think it can be better than this. So why don't you go inside your inner self, your spirit, and come up with nuggets that you will use to channel my psychological resources. That's what your mind is telling you by boredom. So a good number of them, they feel bored. They are incontinent. They are violent, especially when you don't do their biddings, and they are more pleasure-centered. So, and another thing is that they are more materialistic. If you have a child who keeps telling you about vanities, has a value that is tending towards vanities rather than meaning, who begins to behave as though he cannot even connect to the family because of their financial position, or begins to live above his or her means, or begins to make demands on you that is beyond what is expected for the family social class, then know that something is brewing somewhere.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Then, of course, some of them become sexually reckless. Some can become drunkards, and some can begin to abuse substances, like we earlier on said. So it spills into some of the signs. You will see, know that there's a problem here.
Another area where, they seem to have pressure is, in the academics, this desire to excel, to do well. How can we guide them through the anxieties and fears, regarding, academic success? What can we do differently?
I think they have two major challenges. Their brain is more activated than the previous generations. Right from the time they are young, they started playing with the tab. They started going into the internet. They've started acquiring knowledge, like I said. And they begin to want to pursue certain academic disciplines that they may not have the requisite experience for. So a good number of them can perform prodigies in terms of IQ. But the other domains of intelligence is lacking. They are very poor in emotional intelligence. It's the way they talk. To hold conversations. They are almost always glued to the computer.
Yes.
They hardly have social skills. They don't know how to relate with one another. When you see them interacting with each other, they either talk about football or talk about some vague things that are not deep. So what I see is that they have a form of an intelligence that has no regard even for process. So some of them may drop out of the university. Because they get in the class and they think what this teacher is telling me is rubbish. I know more than this. On the internet, so you see a lot of them will tell you that what the teacher is telling me, I know more than him. That patience, they lack the understanding of the learning process. So some of them, without knowing it, can now crash if the process of learning is not followed through. Another thing is their value system. It's a heavily materialistic value system. They see their contemporaries, what they are doing, knowledge of the internet manipulations, software development, and they get paid heavily. They will have one or two friends who have been paid. Those who are not being paid, doing the right job, are also Yahoo people, cybercrime individuals, cyber criminals, who have learned, without going to the formal education, how to be master hacker. They can hack. A friend of mine was telling me how his son, before he entered the university, he hacked the website of their school.
Wow.
A boy who has not entered the university. So you can imagine what he will become. Now we are on the boy's toes. We are saying, don't worry, please, you will go to university. We are going to sell all that we have. We'll send you to America to go to proper university and get trained and get ethical. They call them ethical hackers.
White hat.
When they are even trained. Yeah, that's what the training is. But when the ethical component is not there, what happens?
Yeah.
So that's the challenge of their education. So they drop out. A good number of them are not intellectually patient to digest knowledge. They just want to go on the handle.
Yeah, this is so true. I was somewhere recently and I was told of a story of a young man who had done up to year 3 of a 4-year program with one of the top 4 consulting firms. And the guy just said, I'm tired. And that was
tired, yes.
And he just walked out. Another one was telling me about, an employee who just stopped coming to work. And so they said, you interviewed for this job. We gave you the job. At least come and, put in a letter that you're going. And the young lady told them, deal with it.
Yes.
And just walked away from the job.
I'm tired.
And just walked away.
Very poor emotional intelligence. Because their sense of self is exaggerated. Sees only himself and what he can do with his brain.
Yeah.
All right. He doesn't understand that he's in a network.
And that we're interconnected and that no man is an island. Yes.
Nobody's an island.
That you can't do it alone, no matter what you think. Is that not so?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I hope that, parents, you will watch this with your Gen Z and millennials and talk about the things we're talking about and hear them out. All right. That's the purpose of this program today, to give you answers that you can really use, Now, there's a stigma, in Christian circles when it comes to seeking help for mental health. I mean, growing up, when you hear mental health, the next thing is, the person is mad. But I think that is changing now. But even at that, how can we, as a church, as leaders, as parents, how can we change this conversation about men? Recently, I've had a running battle with a church member who evidently is beginning to have serious mental issues, okay? I mean, the guy calls me and says that when he went out of his house, somebody came into his house, and that right now as he's talking to me, they're in the roof of his house, they're trying to break in and all that stuff, And so, how do we get people to talk about mental health and see it just like, any other sickness? I have malaria, I have fever, and so they can, people can seek help and get it early. Yeah.
I think with parents, teachers, instructors, mentors, pastors need to up their game. We need to learn skills of conversation.
Okay.
One of them is the capacity to listen and listen well. To listen more than what is being spoken. Because a good number of them, when they are disturbed, they want to talk. But some of the things they are discussing may not even make sense. And that's how we lose them. They come up with ideas. They are coming up with concepts that you are wondering, where is this coming from? And they want to express them. But we are not patient enough to properly listen. We're only hearing them. So we need to develop listening skills. Number two, after listening, we need to be able to form concept of the struggle that the child may be having. Apart from the good side, a good number of us will keep talking about my child, my son is very good with computer. He can do this. Oh, he's do that. It's fantastic on one side. Another question to ask is, as good as he is, what are the relational skills? There's a friend of mine who had a child whom the psychiatrists were querying ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. That's very common now. And it's not unconnected, in my own opinion, to our parenting strategies. So I told the couple, I said, please, you may need to reduce the screen hours that this boy has with his lap, with his tab and television. And begin to engage him in the house. This is almost just a 5 or 6 year old boy. Send him on errands deliberately. Give him assignments to do that does not require television or whatever. And then the man within 4 weeks begin to see changes. The boy started interacting more. So what I'm saying in essence is that we must be empathetic by listening more. We must be able to form concept of their problems, their challenge when we listen. We also need to be conversational with them as we teach sound principles. And one of the ways is to use ourselves as examples. They like it when you give an example that they seem to relate with. Or worse still, you let them know too that what they are thinking, you have thought of it before. Only that there was a review. So when you speak that kind of a language, that let them know that, oh, so Daddy has done this before. You even describe a few things that happened then that may look like what they are doing too. They can trust you, open up more.
What
we should stop losing our temper.
About what does the Bible say about mental health and emotional well-being? I mean, what scriptures can I give to a parent to say, how can you handle your child? I mean, we've talked about symptoms now, okay? And so here you are, even as you are talking, you are doing the checklist and you're like, oh my goodness, it looks as if my son or my daughter is exhibiting this, As part of this conversation, what scriptures can we use to encourage and support parents?
Let's look at 3 John verse 2. I insist that the final index of prosperity is soul prosperity. I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. So it means that in all of these, your prosperity, material or otherwise, make sure that your soul is prosperous. And the question is, what is a prosperous soul? Is a soul that is imbued with all the fruit of the Spirit. Is a soul that is patient, that is calm, that can endure, that is sacrificial. So one of the scriptural basis of a successful person, because that soul prosperity comes from renewal of the mind. Joshua chapter 1 verse 8. This book of the Lord shall not depart out of your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night. Then you will make your own way prosperous and then have good success. Matthew 11:28. All come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden. and I will give you rest. Let me be your teacher, then you will find rest for your souls. So we need to let them know that where they are going, you connect with it. That's why we parents are ready to spend any amount of money for the training of their endowments. But that it has to take a process. If you short circuit one of the processes, somebody can break down as a result. A good number of our young people are breaking down because they are biting more than what they can chew.
True.
So scriptures like 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 4, casting down imaginations and strongholds. Strongholds are opinions of their peer pressures, peer group, that seems to be larger than that of their parents and what the Bible is saying. The Bible talks about the fact that we can bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ.
Yeah.
We should let them express themselves. One of the best ways to also mentor them is to give them opportunity to argue.
Okay.
Let them argue. Let's be able to, we call it cognitive mapping. It's only when somebody argues with you that you can map the person mentally. Yeah.
All right. If you're just joining, this is the Roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo. This is where we have conversations on contemporary issues in the Christian faith. Today, we're looking at Gen Z and their mental health. And we have with us Reverend Dr. Adeoye Oyewole, a respected theologian and mental health expert. Remember, like, share, subscribe. If you haven't done so already, please do so right now, okay? And God bless you as you do so, okay? So how can pastors and youth leaders create safe spaces within the church or in the home where Gen Z can feel comfortable opening up about their mental health struggles?
I think it's good to make use of professionals in our congregations.
Okay.
Psychiatrists, counselors, educationists, and of course, pastors, because to be a pastor, the call has something to do with the mind of man and making a positive change. We may be more skillful than each other in terms of training, but the primary drive is to take care of the mind of man from a spiritual perspective. That's our call as pastors. So what we can do easily is to have meetings that are more discursive than didactic. What are the practical ways in which a young man can prevent himself overtaken by the use of drugs? What is the true definition of success?
Okay.
There are so many topics like that.
Yeah.
We make the topics provocative. We make it something that we can discuss. Because it is in discussion you map them, you know their tendencies, you know what they can become or what they are planning to become. So for me, I think the syllabus has to be able to handle the hypothetical deductive reasoning. Volumes of knowledge is going there. We must recognize that our future is inside that hypothetical deductive reasoning.
Yeah.
There's a baby there. There's also the bathwater we don't want. So you have to learn how to journey with them.
And separate one from the other.
And help them to separate without them realizing it.
That's the key.
We must not let them feel we are coming with that sense of authority that is overwhelming without getting them to be able to discuss with us, argue a bit with us, and intelligently get them to see what is wrong.
Whoa. Finally, what role does the family play in supporting the mental health of young people? how can parents build stronger connections with their children, especially regarding emotional and their spiritual well-being?
Family is the oldest organization in the universe and the most important.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the problems Gen Zs have has to do with the dynamics of the family. The dynamics of the family has to do with the dynamics of the marriage between the man and the woman. There's this scripture I usually quote when I'm teaching this, Colossians 3:18. Wives, submit yourself unto your husbands. Husbands, love your wives and do not be bitter. Children, obey your parents. It didn't say obey your family. It didn't say obey your father. It didn't say obey your mother. It said obey your parents.
Your parents.
The parent is the product of the first two verses. Wives submitting, man loving the wife to produce a synergy that the child will submit into. So what we call parent for me and in Bible is the synergy, is the intelligent synergy of the man and the woman. He made them male and female and told them to come together to become one flesh. Because one flesh is loaded, which is synergy. I call it synergy, with a lot of resources. It means your own deficit is a plus for me. My own deficit is what you can make up for in the training of the child. So that's why the training, the nurturing is not just one man show. Parents inside the family should ensure that is not saying go to the right, and mom is saying go to the left. Yeah. And women particularly need to learn this. Women, don't use your children to score points with your husband. Separate your issues from them. Let it be you and your husband. Rather than you poisoning the heart of a good number of these children, these impressionable children, why don't you spare them? Let them notice whatever they want to notice on their own and let them ask questions. But when you go to go and badmouth your husband with your children, hoping that's when you will have, you feel like a champion. What you are doing is that you are sowing a seed of discord in them that may not let them come out strong and successful. Let them be exposed to financial management. How you manage your money? Yeah. Tell them stories of your failures.
My children are experts at financial management.
Yeah. Fantastic. Yes, I'm battling with my son now. He just became a doctor. He has received 2 salaries. But I think he still feels he's a medical student who needs to be calling me to collect money. So he got a shocker 2 weeks ago, or last weekend. He wanted to go to Lagos. And he was like, Daddy, we have not talked. I said, we talk now. You're going to see my friend. Please chat them up, let them know, so that they can come and pick you up at the park. Do you understand? He said, no, how about money now that he's broke? I said, I can't hear that. I don't understand being broke. You're a medical doctor. You are a husband. You are a head of a family as you are there. I said, wrong somewhere. So I've taken it upon myself now that I have not sufficiently taught him how I manage. I only tell them because one of the things I let them know is how I've learned to intelligently live within my means. So they think I have a lot of money. I don't buy cars I can't maintain. I don't buy cars that are not rugged. So I use my cars for 10 years. I have about 4 Mercedes. I have 2 newer ones, fairly newer ones, but I have 2 older ones that are still very reliable, rugged. And they don't consume fuel as people thought. It is the older ones, carburetor one that did. Now, the 3 of them didn't go to private school. They start telling me I need to buy iPhone of 500,000 each. That's ₦1 million. I've told them that I'm planning for my retirement. I'm building a 40-bedded, 40 self-contained hostel for my retirement. It's not only for my revenue, I also want to use it as opportunity to mold people who will be members of that hostel in return. I want to organize lectures for them. Some of them that missed it at home, when they come to my hostel, they will sign. It's a serious thing. You don't come to my hostel without some. Do you understand what I'm saying? So my son, I've noticed, I keep telling him he's not taking it serious. So that's the next phase. Yeah, I have a younger colleague who has a very huge hospital and is like his mentor, his friend. So I've told him this is the problem. In fact, early this morning, that's why I told him to please talk to Tumishe. I will also talk to him. Do you understand? Because it's a serious problem. He's my only son. The other two are girls. Those who manage their money very well. Do you understand? In fact, there's one of them, the girl. If I forget my money in her hand, I have to sign and explain what I want to use the money for before she releases the money. But the boy has not learned it. And so it's an alarm. You understand what I'm saying? You have to learn it. So these are ways in which we can begin to teach our children when we realize there's a problem. I'm not going to him directly. I've done my own a little bit. I've seen it. I've told him, I said, this is not acceptable. I do this, I do this. I'll still go back. But I also know there's a younger person than me who he sees as successful, a doctor who was my student, a consultant, now has a lovely hospital. I've told that one, he got it too. Because he said he traveled abroad and gave his son 9,000 naira to keep on their way to UK. When they came back, he said he asked, Akin, please, where's my 9,000 naira? He said they've shared it. With who? He started acting like he's frustrated. But see how you have put the family into jeopardy. This 9,000 naira is all I have as cash to pay these people that will be pushing trolley for us. You can't do that. I think what happened behind the scene we didn't know. Maybe the mom and the youngest and the sister, they overpowered the boy and collected the money. They shared it 3,000. He said they collected. He said he waited till all of them opened their boxes and returned the 9,000. He said after all that, when they got home 2 days after, he called him again and said that thing, don't let it repeat itself. And that is a serious thing, that you have put the family in jeopardy. That when I am old with your mom, these are the things I want you to be doing for me and for all of us. So you can't afford to be careless. So I picked a lesson from there. And these are the kind of things I do. I let some people I respect and we share the same values tell my son or my daughter what I think I'm telling him or her, and the person is not picking
it, not getting it.
Tell you. Yes. So all these parents that come, some parents that go to school and start fighting teachers. And why are you disciplining my this thing? Why are you correcting my? And we end up having children that others are scared of correcting.
And without correction, you are lost.
I'm telling you. My children know, they are all schooling in the college here where I lecture. Every lecturer knows. He said when they see the tag, they say, which what is that? He said they can stop the lecture and start asking. He said, Daddy, why are they always that interested? You understand? I said, you are their children. They know my position and they know that they are at liberty to teach you what is sound. I'm not the parent you come and tell them, somebody talk to me anyhow. I said, no. Don't come to me. They know you don't. And I should not hear any report of misbehavior. So that's the strategy. So they are aware. From the family, as a church, we're a family. We share the same values and principles. We should trust our brethren to be able to point out issues. Some may do it maliciously at times, but don't dismiss it. Thank them, appreciate it. And don't make it a subject of family discussions where you're talking about somebody who is being jealous of us. That's why the person is talking that way. No. A father shouldn't. There are times mothers may even go. There are times you may mothers even get into that. Are you getting my point? And they get involved in that. I discourage it. if you want us to discuss an issue, bring it as an issue, not backbiting or gossiping or trying to talk about other people in a way that, do you understand what I'm saying? If there's a bad example, let's look at it. Let's even discuss it. How did they reach there? What can we do so that we can get there? Make fun of me. They say I make everything academic. Yes, I say it's academic. So that we learn. This morning one that is having now.
Doc. Thank you. Our time is up. And again, very much. Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you for sharing your experience, your expertise, and your wisdom. As we wrap up, I'd like to encourage our listeners, whether you're a pastor, a parent, a youth leader, or even a Gen Z yourself, there's hope and there's healing in Christ. And it's okay to seek help. Remember, you're not alone. We are called to a community that lifts up one another in the times of need. Let's continue to offer support, empathy, and understanding to the young people in our midst as they navigate the complex issues. There are stuff these guys are dealing with that didn't even exist in our own time. All right. This has been another edition of the Roundtable. Please follow me on Instagram at TRT with Noruwa. All of that is one word. YouTube at the Roundtable with Noruwa, and Facebook at the Roundtable with Noruwa Edokpolo. Remember, Roundtable is now on every first and third Wednesday of the month, 8 p.m. On the 16th, we'll be having Dr. Kingsley and Pastor Mrs. Adeoye Oyewole, and we'll be discussing parenting in the digital age. We want to discuss the challenges of raising children in a world dominated by digital technology and social media. By the way, do remember to check out my e-commerce page at seller.com. Just look for Noruwa Joseph Edokpolo and you'll find me there. Thank you for tuning in to the Roundtable, and until we'll see you again next time, God bless you. Thanks so much, Doc, and God bless you. Bye, everybody. Thank you.